Let me tell you something real quick. You've been talking too much. You've been explaining yourself to people who don't even deserve your energy. You've been announcing every move before you make it. You've been defending your dreams to people who stopped dreaming a long time ago. And I'm here to tell you, silence is your secret weapon. When you finally stop worrying about who's watching, who's doubting, who's laughing, and start tuning into you, that's when the game changes. That's when the shift happens. See, the power's not out there. It's in here. It's in the mornings when you wake up and make a commitment to yourself. It's in the nights when nobody's clapping, but you're still grinding. That's where champions are built. Stop looking for validation. Stop waiting on approval. This is your journey. Some of y'all are busy making noise when you should be making moves. You're so caught up in proving people wrong that you forgot what it feels like to prove yourself right. You want peace, you want clarity, you want progress, then sit down, lock in, and focus on you like your life depends on it, because it does. The truth is, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to hand you peace, purpose, or passion. That's your responsibility. That's your job. You can't be distracted by drama, by gossip, by critics who don't even know what it takes to carry your dream. You weren't built for noise. You were built for greatness. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them walk away. While they talk about you, you keep working. While they sleep on you, you keep waking up hungry. While they scroll, they don't need to understand your silence, because soon they'll see the results you built in it. Understand this, success doesn't come from shouting. It comes from showing up day in, day out. It comes from being relentless in private, from saying no to distractions, no to shortcuts, no to what's easy, and yes to your future. You don't need to say it, you need to be it. And when you start to focus on you, really focus, something powerful happens. Your mind clears up, your purpose sharpens, your energy gets louder, even though your words get quieter. Your presence starts speaking before you even open your mouth. That's when everything starts to fall into place. Because the universe doesn't respond to noise, it responds to discipline, to intention, to quiet storms that shake the world without a sound. You've tried it the loud way. Now try it the focused way. Try it the silent way. Not because you're scared, but because you're locked in. Because you're too busy becoming who you were born to be to entertain what you used to be. So next time someone asks you, what are you working on? Smile. Say nothing. And let your results answer everything. Silence is a weapon. Use it to protect your energy and focus. In a world that's constantly shouting, constantly posting, constantly comparing, the power of silence is overlooked. People feel like they need to be seen, need to be heard, need to explain every step of their journey to the world. And in doing that, they scatter their energy in every direction. They don't realize that silence isn't weakness, it's control, it's power. It's the ability to stand in the middle of the storm, unshaken, because you've learned that real growth happens when nobody's watching. Silence isn't about hiding, it's about holding. It's about holding your energy, holding your thoughts, holding your fire inside until the time is right to let it all out. Not with noise, but with results. When you understand that silence isn't the absence of action, but the presence of intention, you start to see your whole life shift. Too many people are trying to prove they're doing something instead of actually doing something. They talk about plans they haven't even committed to. They post about progress they haven't earned yet. They're more focused on looking like they're grinding than actually grinding. But when you stop broadcasting everything and start building in silence, something inside you changes. Your thoughts become clearer. Your actions become sharper. You stop needing people to cheer you on because you've learned to cheer for yourself in private. You start protecting your space like it's sacred, because it is. Every time you choose silence, you're choosing to conserve your energy instead of leaking it out to people who won't respect it. Focus doesn't survive in noise. It gets drowned out. The more noise you entertain, what he said, what she's doing, what they think, the further you drift from your own center. You can't create clarity while you're constantly distracted by outside voices. Silence allows you to hear the only voice that matters, yours, and not the voice that's influenced by fear or doubt or social pressure, but the one deep down that's telling you who you really are and what you really want. That voice is always speaking, but most people can't hear it because they've surrounded themselves with too much noise. Silence brings you back to that voice. It sharpens it, it strengthens it. And once you're locked into that voice, distractions start to fall away. People won't understand your silence at first. They'll ask questions. They'll think something's wrong. They'll assume you're failing. At them. It's not your business. You're not on this path to be understood. You're on this path to become unshakable. You're not staying silent because you're uncertain. You're staying silent because you're locked in. Because your time, your energy, your mental peace are all too valuable to waste on meaningless conversation. Every moment you spend explaining yourself to the wrong people is a moment stolen from your focus. Every time you argue with someone who doesn't get it, you pause your momentum. Let them talk. Let them assume. You're not here to defend your process. You're here to live it. And it's not just about protecting yourself from other people. Sometimes the noise comes from inside, your own mind racing, overthinking, doubting, comparing. Silence is how you learn to quiet that voice too. You sit with it. You don't run from it. You breathe through it. You focus your attention on the work, on the vision, on the process. The more you do this, the more you realize you don't need to control everything around you. You just need to control yourself. That's where the real power comes from being able to wake up every day and decide that your focus matters more than the noise, more than the drama, more than the distractions. From being able to look in the mirror and know you're showing up not for approval, not for applause, but because this is who you are. Because the discipline is real. The hunger is real. The vision is real. Silence isn't absence, it's elevation. It's you rising above the noise, choosing not to be reactive, choosing to preserve your energy for what matters most. It's you building something so strong inside yourself that you don't need to announce your progress. You embody it. And once you commit to that, once you commit to moving in silence with purpose, the world starts to respond differently. Not because you told it to, but because your energy speaks for itself. Stop seeking validation. Your growth doesn't need an audience. The need to be seen, the desire to be liked, the constant craving for approval from people who don't even know your struggle, that's what's holding most people back. You grow in the dark. You evolve when nobody's clapping. You don't need someone else to confirm your worth before you begin. The moment you start depending on outside validation, you give away your power. You become a puppet, not a creator. You start chasing applause instead of chasing purpose. You start editing your life to fit into a version that pleases others instead of becoming the version that fulfills your calling. Validation is a trap. It feels good in the moment, but steals your identity in the long run. The truth is, you don't need likes, followers, or approval to build something real. You don't need permission to change. You don't need applause to keep going. Growth is between you and your vision, not you and the world. When you're truly committed to growing, to healing, to building something powerful with your life, you learn to validate yourself. You learn to sit with your progress, even if nobody notices. You learn to keep moving, even when it feels like nobody's watching. Because deep down, you know you're not doing it for show. You're doing it because you were made for more. You were made to rise, not to be recognized. Recognition comes and goes. Claps fade. Applause dies. But growth stays. Growth transforms. People will try to measure your progress by their own standards. They'll try to define your success by what they can see. But they can't see the sacrifices you've made. That's alignment. That's where confidence comes from, not from praise, but from consistency, from doing what you said you would do long after the mood has left, from growing roots so deep that no amount of surface level approval can shake you. Validation from others is like sugar. It gives you a quick rush, but leaves you empty. Internal validation is like fuel. It keeps you going long after others stop clapping. You've got to be willing to walk alone for a season. You've got to be willing to move in silence while the world misunderstands you. You've got to be okay with not being the favorite, not being the most celebrated, not being the one who gets the spotlight, because your spotlight isn't out there, it's inside you. And when you validate yourself, you stop chasing popularity and start walking in purpose. You stop comparing yourself to others and start competing with who you were yesterday. You stop bending for acceptance and start standing in your truth. Every time you choose self-connection over external approval, you grow stronger. Every time you clap for yourself, even when nobody else does, you train your mind to believe in your own voice. And that belief becomes unshakable. It becomes your foundation. It becomes your fuel on the days when nothing seems to be going right. When you no longer need someone to tell you you're enough, you finally become free. Free to try, free to fail, free to rise again. Because your worth isn't on trial, your value isn't up for debate. You've decided that you're worth it, not because they said so, but because you know so. And that kind of self-belief, that kind of quiet inner confidence, that's what drives unstoppable growth. Let your work speak louder than your words ever could. Too often, people spend all their time talking about what they're going to do, what they plan to accomplish, what their dreams look like on paper, but they never follow through with action that backs it up. They build castles in the air with their words, but they never lay a single brick in reality. Talking is easy. Talking is cheap. It costs nothing to say you're going to be great. You're going to win. You're going to rise to the top. But results cost discipline, sacrifice, long nights, early mornings, setbacks, and struggle. That's why real ones don't need to speak all the time. They let their grind do the talking. They don't need to argue with doubters because their consistency silences the noise. They don't need to broadcast every move because the outcome is proof enough. The people who are really doing it don't have time to keep explaining it in a world where everyone is trying to prove themselves through captions, reels, posts, and highlight reels. The ones who win are the ones who understand the value of quietly putting in work. While others are busy curating a life that looks good online, the focused ones are building a life that actually works offline. You don't have to advertise every sacrifice you make. You don't have to tell the world every time you choose discipline over distraction. You just have to stay consistent. You just have to keep showing up when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's thankless, because in the end, your results won't lie. They'll speak louder than your excuses ever could. They'll tell the story of what you built in the dark when no one was clapping. They'll carry your name into rooms you never even stepped in yet. The ones who talk the most usually do the least. The loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. The loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. When you're really building something, when you're really invested in growth, you don't have time to waste convincing people. You stop trying to prove yourself and you just start producing. You start waking up with a fire inside that doesn't need to be explained. You start measuring your days not by attention, but by execution. That shift is everything. Because once you taste progress that's earned in silence, you never go back to begging for recognition. You don't need to post your pain to prove your strength. You don't need to explain your grind to validate your vision. You just work, you show up, you elevate, and the truth is, your work is the one thing nobody can deny. People can argue with your words, they can ignore your ideas, they can doubt your dreams, but they can't erase your results. They can't pretend you didn't put in the work when it's standing right in front of them. The business you built, the weight you lost, the skills you mastered, the mindset you cultivated, that's real. That's what speaks when you walk into the room. That's what gets respect without needing to shout for it. That's what turns doubters into believers, not because you tried to change their minds, but because your reality forced them to see the truth. Most people are in love with the idea of success, but they hate the process. They love talking about the destination, but they avoid the journey. But the ones who let their work speak know the process is everything. They don't just chase outcomes. They fall in love with showing up, with pushing themselves past their limits, with becoming the person it takes to get there. They understand that the most powerful statement they can make is not a quote, not a speech, not a motivational post. It's the quiet, relentless effort they give when no one is watching. That's what builds legacy. That's what separates winners from talkers. That's what leaves a mark long after the noise has faded. There's a different level of confidence that comes when your actions are aligned with your words. It's not arrogance. It's not showmanship. It's certainty rooted in the fact that you did what others weren't willing to do. That kind of confidence doesn't need to be shouted. He walks into a room and changes the energy without saying a word. It draws opportunities not because it begged for them, but because it attracted them through effort, integrity, and commitment. You don't need to prove yourself when your work already proved everything. You don't need to talk about how hard you're going. You just need to keep going. The ones who win aren't always the loudest, but they are the most locked in. They are the ones whose lives speak so loudly that words become unnecessary. Discipline in private creates power in public. What most people don't understand is that greatness is built behind the scenes. It's not about the spotlight, the recognition, the standing ovations. It's about the moments when no one is watching and you still choose to show up. It's about what you do when there's no crowd, no applause, no accountability except to yourself. That's where the real transformation happens. It's in the quiet repetitions, the daily sacrifices, the commitment to standards that nobody else even knows you've set. Discipline is what separates those who dream from those who do. It's the foundation that success is built on, not the flash, not the hype, not the talent alone. It's the ability to stay locked in, focused, consistent when distractions are calling your name, when comfort is tempting you to settle, when excuses are trying to take the wheel. When you develop discipline in private, you train your mind to lead, not follow. You start relying on effort instead of emotion. You don't wait for motivation because you've built a system that moves whether you feel like it or not. That kind of discipline becomes your identity. It becomes the reason you're able to make decisions based on goals, not moods. When the world tries to pull you in 100 directions, discipline keeps you centered. When life throws punches, discipline is your guard. When doubt creeps in, discipline reminds you of the hours, the reps, the grind that nobody else saw. And that's what makes you powerful, not because you tell people what you've done, but because they can feel it in how you carry yourself. They can sense the work behind your presence. Every win you see in public was once just a choice made in private. Every champion had days where quitting would have been easier, but they chose to keep going. Not because they were inspired every day, but because they made a decision and honored it regardless of how they felt. That's discipline. It's brushing your teeth in the dark, running when it rains, reading when your mind's tired, practicing when no one claps, planning when no one cares. It's the act of choosing growth over comfort again and again until it becomes who you are. And eventually, that private discipline becomes public power. People will ask how you did it, where the strength came from, how you made it look so effortless. They won't understand that what they're seeing is just the overflow of the thousands of decisions you made when no one was looking. You don't get stronger by chance, you get stronger by discipline. It's not a switch you flip when life gets hard, it's a muscle you build every single day. The more you train it, the more unstoppable you become. When the world panics, you stay poised. When pressure rises, you rise higher. When others fold, you follow through. That doesn't come from talent, that doesn't come from talking, that comes from putting in the work over and over until the work becomes a part of you. You don't need to be seen to be sharpening your sword. You don't need to be praised to stay on your mission, because eventually the discipline will show. Eventually, the strength you built in the shadows will shine so bright it can't be ignored. And that's the part people miss. They see the trophies, the applause, the achievements, but they don't see the morning alarms, the lonely hours, the sacrifices behind the scenes. They want the success, but not the solitude. They want the power, but not the practice. They want the rewards without the repetition. But true power is born in repetition. In the early wake-ups when you'd rather sleep, in the workouts when you'd rather quit, in the decisions to say no when everyone else says yes. That's where you forge discipline. That's where you mold your mind into something unshakable. And once you do that, you don't need anyone else to keep you accountable. You become the standard. You become the example. You become the one that others look to and wonder how you're so locked in, so driven, so consistent. And the answer will always be the same. It was never about being perfect. It was never about being the loudest or the fastest or the most gifted. It was about doing the work when it was boring, doing the work when it was hard, doing the work when it was lonely, and doing the work until the results became undeniable, until the strength you built in silence started speaking louder than any words ever could, until the discipline that guided you in private started opening doors in public that most people will never reach because they were too busy seeking shortcuts instead of building habits. Power doesn't just arrive, it is earned daily in the quiet choices that nobody applauds, but everybody notices when the lights finally come. When you focus on yourself, alignment and clarity follow naturally. Too many people are chasing peace by chasing other people. They're running in circles trying to fix everything around them when the real work needs to happen inside. They're constantly distracted by what others are doing, comparing timelines, watching highlights, trying to match someone else's pace and wondering why they feel lost. Clarity doesn't come from looking outwards. It comes from locking inwards. It comes from silencing the noise and asking the hard questions. What do you want? Who are you becoming? What's your purpose? What's in your control? You can't hear those answers when your focus is scattered, when your energy is split between proving something to the world and trying to keep up with expectations that were never yours to begin with. Focusing on yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. It's how you realign with the version of you that was buried under years of distractions, people-pleasing, and noise. When you turn your focus inward, you start seeing your life with different eyes. You notice your habits, you see where your time goes, you feel where your energy leaks. You start understanding that everything you allow has a cost, and not all of it is worth paying. You stop chasing things that look good but don't feel right. You stop saying yes to people who drain you. You stop entertaining conversations that go nowhere. You start protecting your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You stop seeking permission to rest. You stop apologizing for needing space. You start building a life that's aligned with your values, not someone else's opinions. The more you focus on yourself, the more you begin to attract clarity. You start realizing that success without peace isn't success. That being busy isn't the same as being productive. That presence is more powerful than pressure. And with that clarity comes strength. You stop trying to do everything at once because you finally understand what actually matters. You stop running on autopilot. You stop living for the next weekend, the next escape, the next validation hit. You become intentional. You move with purpose. You don't need to rush because you're no longer competing with anyone. Your focus shifts from urgency to alignment. You no longer feel behind because you're not on their timeline. You're on yours. You stop measuring your worth by what you haven't achieved and start recognizing the power of what you've overcome. That's what happens when you stop looking outward and start looking inward. You find peace in your progress. You find joy in your journey. You find power in your presence. And as you do that, your vision clears. You start moving differently. You stop reacting and start responding. You don't waste energy explaining your moves. You don't get pulled into battles that don't serve your peace. You don't chase relationships that require you to abandon yourself. You become grounded, centered, focused. You move with a kind of calm that only comes from inner clarity. People notice the difference. They can feel it in your presence. They see it in your decisions. You're no longer operating from fear or scarcity or pressure. You're operating from truth. And that truth guides everything. What you say yes to, what you let go of, what you build, what you believe. And the best part is, you don't need to force anything. You don't need to beg for clarity. You just need to stay focused, stay disciplined, stay in alignment. Because when you do, things start to fall into place. Not because life suddenly gets easy, but because you're no longer resisting your path. You're flowing with it. You're choosing it. You're walking it with confidence. You're building from the inside out. That's what focus does. It gives you the power to stop chasing everything and start becoming exactly who you were meant to be. It reveals the truth that peace was never out there. It was always within, waiting for you to choose it through focus, through presence, through alignment.